Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. We have Dr. Alexander Praveen Durai. I now request Ms. Vanessa to take over the session.
A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to the third session of our international webinar on global approaches to case study. I extend my hearty welcome to our resource person for the session, Dr. F.R. Alexander Praveen Durai, and Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous Fraternity, Dr. E. Jerome Xavier, Principal, Ms. Shalini, the Vice Principal, Ms. Sushma Shri, Head, Department of Commerce, UG, my faculty members of Commerce and Management, my dear participants across the globe. I, Vanessa Priya Malcolm, Faculty Department of Commerce, Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous, would be a part of the session as a moderator for our resource person. It takes immense pleasure for me to introduce and welcome our resource person, Dr. F.R. Alexander Praveen Durai, who is currently working as an associate professor and head Department of Commerce at St. Joseph's College Autonomous, Trichy, Tamil Nadu, since the year 1990. He is qualified with an MCom, MBA, MPhil, and a PhD. He is also the director of the Pondicherry University at St. Joseph's College MBA Training Program since the year 2017. He is the Dean of the School of Management Studies and UGC Affairs at St. Joseph's College Autonomous, Trichy, Tamil Nadu from the year 2012. Sir was a visiting faculty for the Southern Indian Regional Council Institute of Chartered Accountant of India from the year 2005 to 14. He is the coordinator for international collaborations and international students since 2013. Dr. Praveen Durai has authored books on HRM, PGDM, and various MBA programs for 19 universities and autonomous colleges. Sir has also published series of case studies in Business Manager magazine. That's the reason why he is connected with us today. Sir is a member of the Academic Council of Arul Anandar College Autonomous and Lady Dock College Autonomous, Madurai. He is a member of the Board of Studies for PG Commerce at Bharathidasan University. Sir has carried out UGC minor research projects on HR practices too. I'm sure Sir is going to lead us through an amazing and valuable session because his profile speaks what an eminent and well-learned person is with us today. Over to Dr. Alexander. Sir, you can now take over the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Priya, for this good introduction.
Thank you, sir.
At the outset, I express my gratitude to the management of Indian Academy Degree College, its principal, Dr. Jerome Xavier, the vice principal, the head of the Department of Commerce, the Faculty of Commerce, and all the participants. For I'm going to be here with you for next 1 to 1 hour and 15 minutes. I need to thank at personal level the principal, Dr. Jerome, for having invited me to be the resource person for this wonderful international webinar. I had been to Indian Academy Degree College earlier. That was a physical visit. I was there for a one-day faculty development program. And I'm very happy about those memories. I cherish those memories. Now, I basically belong to Commerce Department. So I am heading the Commerce Department presently. I had been the staff of Commerce Department since 1990. In 1991, a new educational policy was introduced, which resulted in liberalization, privatization, and globalization. A lot of changes were made in the way the business has been conducted. If you ask me whether all these changes got reflected in the commerce and management curriculum, I'll be very sad to say now, no, it has not got connected with our curriculum. We have been rather slow in making necessary changes in our curriculum. This is one aspect. The other aspect about me is that since 2007, I have been connected with Pearson Education, for whom I am writing books. As was said, I had written Human Resource Management, Principles of Management, and several customized books, including one for VTU Bangalore and GTU, Gujarat Technological University. And I have been busy with those works. On and off, I have been closely working with them. But you know what is happening of late? They have reduced their interest and involvement with the publication of physical textbooks. And now they have decisively moved to publication of adaptive case studies. And you would be surprised to know that they are spending in crores to bring out software-based case studies. And I used to ask them, why is that you are just giving up on physical textbooks and moving towards e-books and particularly towards case studies? And they say that everything is going to change. And this COVID-19 pandemic just to expedite the process. And they have been working on that for the past several years. As a matter of fact, I am also involved in the development of one of their case studies. I worked with the Pearson Education and the Liquid e-learning company in New Delhi. As an author, I was just working to develop an adaptive branching scenario case study, which I'll be just explaining in detail in later part of our discussion, now how to develop a case study and how it actually becomes a final output, how this delivery is done. So that we will be going to discuss. We are always proud as commerce professors or management professors because our programs are much sought after programs. Across India, you go to any institution, you ask any principal, they would say the first course to get filled up is commerce course. And we are always proud about it. But there is also another aspect involved in that. I'm going to show that data to you, which will show to you this commerce program, BCom program, is one of the programs with least employable skills. It is with the least employable skills. You compare with the BSc, that is science graduates, you compare with the engineering graduates, you compare with the medicine, and they say BCom and for that matter MBA, they are considered to be the least employable program. And now corporates are going to enter into this higher education with the big bang. They have already decided and they are working on that. And one of the domains, one of the disciplines presently they are concentrating on is the business discipline, namely the commerce and management. There are certain simple reasons. One is commerce students make their decision in their school itself. They join the commerce stream. So they have no option other than coming to BCom or to computer with the commerce with the computer application, BBA, etc. Of course, wherein the commerce enjoys the advantage over other programs. But when a science student or somebody chooses the science stream, when he comes to this higher education level, he or she can very well go to study this medicine or engineering, or chooses to come to science, arts and science college. There is a physics, chemistry, mathematics, statistics, electronics, and whatnot. Everything is available. So the number gets automatically reduced. They always feel the need to do something as part of their competitive process to attract the students. But in commerce department, due to complacency and already available demand, we never felt of changing our curriculum. Of course, I do agree with every one of you. We do make incremental changes, step-by-step changes, but we have never gone for radical changes. Now, what is happening? What is the output of this lack of radical changes? It is very simple. We give the impression to all our students in this commerce discipline that their real life situation, corporate world will be very simple, straightforward, and there will be a single dimensional solution available to everybody. This is because whenever we teach accounts papers, we go ahead only with the predefined solutions. We predefine everything, whether it is cost accounting or management accounting or financial accounting, either solution at the end, or we see to it that everything is solvable by. But in real life situation, actually there is no solution available. What appears to be a solution will appear to be a problem again. So from problem to solution to problem, they always move. This is how the real world functions. So when they move to the real world, they get the shock of their life. And they also take time to prepare themselves for the demands of the real life situation, demands of the corporate. And good number of them are not able to cope up with that situation. And they fail in the sense that the attrition happens. Now the companies understood, the corporates understood clearly what is the exact problem in higher education and what is the exact problem in business education. There is a gulf. There is a gap between what is taught and what is required in the market. Who is responsible for all that? Nobody can be blamed for that. Student cannot be blamed for that. Companies cannot be blamed. And we have to accept all the blame. Because as I said in the beginning, we are prepared only for an incremental change. The business has undergone a complete change, but that is not the case with regard to business curriculum. What I used to teach in 1990, those papers are still available with the minimum cosmetic changes. So this is the time we have to move our commerce education, management education close to what is happening in the real life situation. This is where the case study is gaining prominence. I tell you, for long, if I ask you whether these lectures are supplement to case study or case studies are supplement to lecture, most of you would say case studies are supplement to lectures, content delivery. Yes, this is how we perceive it. This is because of our convenience, we perceive like that. Because we are not exposed to the case study based teaching. But in corporate side, they say down the line in few years time, when they enter this field in large numbers, of course, you would have heard about Geo University, and they are developing 4G and 5G. Recently, some WhatsApp videos were available in which they say most of these techniques are going to be used for education. But that lectures are supplement to case studies. The content delivery should come in between when the student discusses the actual problems. Then and there, when he gets a doubt, all these should be clarified through the lecture mode. So naturally, the role of teacher is going to change a lot. Now itself, you would be finding it. Every institution is going for online teaching. Now we are going to see a new situation that we call it as a new normal, wherein the teacher will not be the center of attraction. It will not be teacher-centered classrooms. It is going to be learner-centered classrooms. We have to work everything so that students learn it easy. And they feel technology is going to help us in a large way. In an unimaginable way, technology is going to help in the form of teaching. When we talk about online teaching, everyone become afraid. We get panicked. What is going to happen to me? Because as you know, that it's a very simple theory that a few will be teaching for a large number of students. Even the new education policy talks about it. So in that concept only, when I was offered this topic, I readily accepted. Because having worked with Pearson Education on this case study, having learned how it helps, and having understood how the future is going to change, how this adaptive teaching is going to come in a large way, why this blended learning is very important, I have accepted this topic. So let me discuss with you for next 45 minutes to 1 hour, how the whole event is unfolding in the field of commerce education. How this case study, adaptive case study, is going to take a very prominent place, why it is going to take to that place, and how to prepare case studies. Once we learn how to prepare case study, we'll also be learning how it works in an actual environment. Now let me go for presentation of my slides. I hope you are able to see this first slide, and I'm going to move to the next slide. As you can see here, what I said a few minutes back, here it is very clear. I won't say that all others are doing well, but we must be bothered about our own discipline. We must be bothered about our own program. As you can see here, from 2014 to 2019, that commerce performance is not very impressive. It hovers between 26 and 37, which means nearly 65% of the students of commerce are not employed. This is a worrisome factor. Why I say it is a very worrisome factor for the teachers like us? Because we are going to face a competition right now. There is going to be competition from Indian corporates, and there is going to be competition from higher education institutions of foreign countries. That international universities are going to come and have their off campuses here, and they will come out only with the technology. So their strategy, their marketing strategy will be predominantly on technology. So this is the time we change our attitude, we change our approach towards education, and ensure that our education become really productive for our students. And when I talk to that people from publishing industry side, they say that supposing you approach a problem, you are a commerce student sits for a campus interview, and some problem is given to him to solve, and even if he is not able to solve, but provide some multi-dimensional view of that problem, you give some other dimension, then they feel the campus, those people come for campus interviews, they feel this person has something. He is able to understand the problem, but he is looking at the problem in a different angle. This is called walking around the problem. Have we ever asked our students to walk around the problem? We give them a single solution, single dimensional approach. But these case studies, adaptive learning, they are providing multi-dimensional, or at least there will be 3-dimensional approach to learning. Now, what is happening in general in the world right now, in India right now, and what is happening in the field of higher education, that will have a very quick look at it. Then we will move on to these case studies and adaptive case studies. As you may be knowing that when we see that growth of the world, we say industry 1.0, this steam engine was introduced. Then we talk about the industry 2.0, electricity was invented. Then we talk about industry 3.0 when the computers were introduced. So when computers were introduced, the man-machine interface came into existence. So there was a human, there was a machine, there was a human-machine interface was happening. That is how we were operating through computers. But now at the moment, we are living in industry 4.0 age. And now we are talking about Internet of Things, Internet of Systems. That means now what is happening is it is not a human-machine interface, it is going to be machine-machine interface. Now you talk about chatbots. Whatever answers earlier a receptionist or somebody else, some human being was telling, now the system, the computer, the robot, artificial intelligence is telling us. This is right now happening. This happens independent of this COVID-19 or pandemic. This has been happening. Changes have been happening. So this one background we must be very thorough with. When some of the CEOs at the global level were interviewed regarding this new normal, when they were asked how long this new normal would last, they said, no. We have no plan to go back to old normal. Hereafter, it is going to be only new normal. That TCS chief executive officer was making a statement. He says that right now we understood. We need only 25% of our staff to be in the office. Rest of the 75% of staff can work from home. And then he makes a further statement. Out of the 25% of the staff, only 25% of their time should be in the office. Not all their time. Just 25% of their time, they need to be in the office. Rest of the time, they can also be from home. They can also work from. This is how it is changing. And when we talk about blended learning, we ask the question, digital learning, online learning, we often ask the question whether our students will be able to cope up with that, whether they can learn independent of it. But the fact is, sometimes to rectify the mistakes or errors or repairs of our mobile, we are asking our students only. We are living with the Gen Z and millennial children. They have a thorough knowledge of everything you have in a laptop or a mobile phone. So that also we have to keep in mind. Then this is one background which is very important. The second one is how long this COVID would last. That's the biggest question everybody is asking. Now they say this vaccine would come. Oxford University is working on a vaccine. Indian pharmaceutical companies are working on it. Russia is ahead of others. China is hacking the computers of those who are undertaking this vaccine development process. All these we are hearing. But the conservative estimate says it is going to be there for quite some time. Normally, we see a situation in one of the three ways. One is problem situation, or a risk situation, or crisis situation. When I know that this problem would come, but this would go, and I can also make a reasonable estimation about how long it would last, then I would say it is a problem or at the most risk. I would have a cyclone. During northeast monsoon, we will have cyclone because northeast monsoon is characterized only by cyclones, forming of cyclone, and such a cyclone will have a landfall, and that damage will be there, and this whole impact would last for few weeks. Then we'll get back to normalcy. And there will be a power failure or something, some other emergencies. We know this would, based on our empirical experience, this would go on for this particular period of time. But there are certain issues for which you cannot make any reasonable estimation or prediction. For such problems, only way is preparing ourselves and finding the alternatives. And today we see this COVID-19 as an unknown of unknowns problem. We are not able to measure the risk. We are not able to give any time frame for solving this problem. They say it may solve in 1 year or 2 years. We don't know when it gets solved. But one thing is, sir, once we are used to technology, the history shows that we have never come back from that. So we'll have to be prepared for that. Now, very recently, ACCA has come out with the survey. Association of Chartered Certified Accountant, they have made a survey, and as you can see here, the yellow line indicates the academia. If you see what are the fields which are worst affected, as you can see, public practice, public sector, NGO, corporate sector, and the last one is academic. As you can see, the worst affected is going to be the academic sector. All these social distancing and all other related problem, mask, face mask, and all this, it is very difficult to regulate the behavior of our students. The government will go for the safest means. The safest means is indefinitely postponing the reopening of the colleges and going for alternative mode of education. Now all the process has started. So again, there is a big necessity. There is a big necessity for us to move to the next level, that is for going for adaptive learning. Then this is a very latest survey done by McKinsey company along with the economics discipline of Oxford University. And this report, as you can see, I wish all of you look at it carefully. If you look at it very carefully, one sector, the third one from the top, educational services, we feel the impact on educational field would last at least till 2025. And you can see 2025 plus. To make a very conservative estimate, they say you have to be prepared for an impact till 2025. That means you can never have an ad hoc plan, a temporary plan till 2025, because we have a full 5 year left. So what is the alternative? We will have to change ourselves. We will have to radically change ourselves towards newer form of education and make ourselves ready to face the competition from the unknown people. I won't say from the known people. From unknown people with the unknown technologies, we will be prepared. So this situation also warrants that we adopt a newer technology. And this is the next one. This is with regard to higher education situation. As you can see, now we are seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, then augmented reality, virtual reality, robots, everything is working. And then the next major problem for which we must be ready is the shelf life of skills. How long does a particular work would last? The conservative estimate says that out of the existing jobs, 40% of the jobs would disappear. But fortunately, new jobs would emerge. Are we prepared to train our students in the new job, yet to come jobs? How would we know? So we have to do a forecasting there. Then there is the next one. That is very important. That is the way in which we are going to focus. That is the emergence of new mode of learning. All these learning modes will be based on digital. All these are digital modes. And there is going to be wide skill gaps across sectors. We train every one of them for banking and insurance industry. But all of a sudden, what will happen is there will be surplus, glut in these sectors, and the new sectors would emerge wherein there would be employment opportunities. Very quickly, we must change our strategy, change our curriculum, change our teaching, learning, and then prepare our students for the new areas. And this kind of dynamism is now required, especially in business education, as we look at the whole problem from business education perspective. And up to the latest report, new education policy, now everyone talks about introducing digitization, technology in education. And the National Knowledge Commission, of course, it has been there 2010. For the past 10 years, it has been repeatedly said, and it has already mentioned, there is the education system has got separated, detached from the labor market requirements. We ensure that the employers are appearing in the campus only for Board of Studies or Academic Council, not for anything else. And all these internship, now the government is going to make internship compulsory 3 months in a project work, not very effective because they are not serving the intended ways. And then next one is we just transfer some theoretical knowledge. ACCA, I recently attended one of their conferences. They have done an all India global level survey, which says they have compared the performance of students across different countries, and they found out one thing. Indian students are good at calculation. They are top in the world, but they are very poor in interpretation, or we call it as discussion. And they say there is a discussion deficit among the Indian students. And this is what we are seeing. You take a ratio analysis. We just teach them how to prepare ratios. And we allot least time why we prepare those ratios. Very rarely we tell them why we prepare those ratios. But you know, the tally is available, so many tools are available. The companies, they don't want anybody to prepare these ratios. They want people to do analysis and reach certain conclusions which will be useful for decision making. Our students are to be exposed more to decision situations, which is not happening any paper, any subject. So that change has to be brought about, and it is happening. As you may be knowing that new education policy talks about academic bank of credits. So that is going to, you have to be well aware of that. Now the credit transfer is going to happen. Some institutions somewhere in Delhi or Mumbai, they will offer some unique course. Our students will go and register for that particular course. Though they will be studying in our campus, for that particular course, they will register there, complete it, and get the credit. All these credit will be stored in a centralized manner. And similarly, some students in North India, Eastern India, or some other part, they will come to our college, do certain course, and they will get the credit. All these will get accumulated. Once the student gets 120 credits, and he will get the degree, provided it is properly distributed, the core, allied, elective, and everything is properly distributed, they'll get the degree. And only 80 credits you will be giving, remaining 40 or 44 credits will be given by somebody else. So this has become a reality. And naturally, it requires that you improve the quality of our delivery system, quality of the learning available to the students. And another observation is technology should be used in a large way in educational planning, teaching, learning, and everything is justified. And FICCI, Federation of Indian Commerce, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, they also say that everything should be moved towards learner-centered paradigm of education. Now, this is why I have given this is the latest report available with the UGC website, Education Quality Upgradation and Inclusion Program, recently released by HRD Minister, now renamed as Higher Education Minister, which makes two critical observations. Our present curriculum is irrelevant, which leads to lack of employability skills among the students, which we can connect with what we had seen in the very first slide. Just 30% of the students develop employable skills, especially in commerce. Then other one, as you can see, but this is the very important teaching effectiveness. They make an observation. Our students go for rote learning without any critical thinking and participation. This is one area which is going to be addressed by case studies, especially adaptive case studies. All we think about case study, and a survey also says that the teachers are generally afraid of case studies. It's true. It is because all informations are given in one go. If you read a case study, all information are given, and then what happens is questions are asked. And if you take Harvard business case studies, it will run into 22 pages. The case study will be there for first 14 pages. The data will be provided for the rest of the pages. So now you'll have to go to the remaining data, and you'll have to call out necessary information. And that is why most of the teachers were avoiding it. Though some of them know very well that this is very important, still they avoid it because they don't know how to approach it. And when you go for case studies, there is a problem how much a student can grasp. I tell you, this is where now the companies are working. This is where the companies are investing crores of rupees. They are giving a new dimension. They are giving a new approach to case study. You will find the future case studies very interesting, very simple, very effective. Because using the technology, they are presenting only the information required for making a decision at a particular level. And further information come later. Only after the student get everything clarified, he will move to the next level, wherein further related information would be given. Towards the end, everything would be connected. All these are presently possible because technology is well integrated or embedded with the curriculum development. So this one observation I want to make before I move to the case study. To quickly see what industry expects is, I will say industry wants us to work closely with them, so that they tell them what we need to impart to our students. They expect the students to have problem solving skills. They want them to have knowledge, but only business context knowledge. And the next one is very important. When they move from campus life to work life, there should be a faster and hassle-free transition. Many companies are having their own training center and they spend so much of money. That itself is a problem. They want to do away with that. And some of you would have heard EY. EY company is offering its own academic programs in collaboration with the universities. No, they have got 5 lakh employees. Hereafter, these 5 lakh employees will choose their own company's program. Presently, it is offered free of cost. Later on, they will charge. Still, they say they are going to prefer it because the reason is they know what to offer. They are making a demand to the academias, to the universities. You just give this much knowledge, you give this input, and we will ensure that we give a best delivery mode. So that change is happening. So industry expect us to be very flexible, our students to be very flexible and adaptable to the emerging situation, which is going to be a melting pot, which is going to change rather fast. Now we move to the core domain of today's discussion. Here there are 3 aspects involved. One is the first aspect, that is the conventional form of teaching, which is face-to-face teaching. The students are physically present and the teacher is physically present. The class atmosphere is created and the knowledge transfer takes. It has its own importance. It has its own strength, which can never be replaced. I tell you, out of my teaching experience, you will also be sharing my view on that. But not for all occasions. Leave alone other occasions. You take the present occasion. Now there is a pandemic scope. There is no other options available. So we go for another form. That is the e-learning form, or we call it as online form. This online form is complete digitization of education. And this is also one of the focus area of the government. They want everything to be moved to online mode. But online mode has its own difficulties. Though it has some strength, it has its own disadvantages. So making students listening is a very difficult one. The study says that the student can be attentive in the classroom for 15 minutes. But when it comes to online learning, it is only 3 minutes. And this was said by one of the person who is working on this case study from the e-learning company. Their survey says, so they want changes at every 3 minutes so that they continue to retain the attention of the students. But both has its own pros and cons. And that is why in future, once the pandemic is over or once the vaccine is available, we will go for a new form of teaching that we call it as blended learning. We'll go for a right blender, right mixer of face-to-face communication and online learning. That presently we call it as blended learning or adaptive learning. You will have the best of both worlds available to the students. What is available and what are the components which we have in a blended learning? You can see. First one aspect is in-person classroom activity, which I just now ensured. The other one is online learning materials, which should also be available, and which also, so we'll have to provide the students have a leisurely learning. The time and the speed of learning, phase of learning should be decided not by the teacher. You can never guarantee that all understand the concept in the same way the teacher intends. Each one has his own level of knowledge, a level of experience, so that absorption capacity differs. But in a classroom learning, we ignore it. But online learning comes as a solution here. And that we see in the next one. We have to provide for independent study time for the students. Who are we to say that the student should learn only from say 8 to 1 o'clock or 9 to 2 o'clock or something like that? That should be option available to the students to learn at his own phase, and this blended learning will provide for it. Now, there are two aspects involved here in our discussion. One is case study, then another one is adaptive case studies. Why case studies first? Normally in a classroom, we give a perception to the students that they are like a hero. Once they go to a company, they will face any problem and they will solve it. And there will always be only good people and good situation in companies. And any bad situation can be easily handled by him. Because this is how we frame our syllabus, we frame our curriculum, this is how we do our teaching. When you talk about issue of shares at premium, we don't go beyond 2 rupees or 3 rupees as a stock premium. But in real life, it is 960. The shares are issued at 960 rupees at premium. The face value is only 10 rupees. But what you see that differences in the real life. When he goes there, you take profit and loss account or balance sheet. What he learns is a very simple, straightforward, ready-made problems. But in real life, it is very different. And that is why we go for case studies. We are going to go for case studies in a large way. And we'll have to be prepared for that. But why these adaptive case studies? Just I informed earlier, we are seeking the help of the technology, which is readily available with us. Companies are ready to provide, or we may even have our own ways and means to develop those technologies. And why this adaptive case study is going to come in a very big way is 2 reasons. One is corporates have identified the importance of it. The other one is students are going to find it very interesting. Besides, there are certain other ways available. Adaptive case study means software-based case studies or technology-based case studies. And these case studies will give a hand-holding to every student. At every level, whether the teacher gives the help or not, the technology will give the help. And that is why we have these LMS available. And once they work on the LMS will take him forward in a step-by-step basis. You are going to see that very shortly how it works. And the second one is about the purpose of introducing adaptive case study is we are going to make a thorough change in the perception of students. We are going to tell them the corporate life or the work life is all about solving problems. The dimension of the problem, the intensity of the problem might differ. Thus, the day-to-day, they'll have to deal only with the problem which requires solution. And the nature of solution will get changed. Then the most important one is we are good. It is very, very important. What we learn as theory should be connected with the real life scenario. So it is going to be a reverse approach. We take something from the corporate, a true or imaginary story, or imaginary means a related story, that we will be discussing. Through the discussions, we will be providing a theoretical basis. Theoretical underpinnings will be given, and you can be very sure about it. The active and thoughtful participation. Students cannot remain aloof to the happenings in the classrooms. He has to take an active part in the ongoing discussions. So for which he need to take a deeper dive into the discussions going on in that particular topic. And as I said in the very beginning, the corporates now expect every student to develop a multi-dimensional view of each problem. When I give 3 solutions to a case study, I am giving 3 dimensions of thinking to the students. If I give 4 solutions to the students, I give 4 dimensions to the problem. That means 4 ways this problem can be tackled. Earlier, what happened is what the teacher knows or what the teacher wants to say, he or she would deliver. But now it is not the case. The technology will help you. Not only the students, even staff will get necessary help from the technology. Everything is available in a ready-made mode. Who can prepare an adaptive case study? Every teacher can prepare. It is a very simple problem, you will understand. So then finally, you have to be providing all necessary analytical skills. Analytical skill is all about analyzing the alternatives and choosing the best alternatives. It is not a one-off event. This is a continuous event, and that is the reason why we prefer adaptive case studies. How this adaptive case study is prepared? There are 3 elements involved in this adaptive case study. One is the content, and this is where we teachers will come to play a very important role. You have to develop the content, and that content is going to help you. What is that content? The content is nothing but some problem. Some problem. How can we know the problem? The problem will be available in the website of companies. It will be available in a magazine. It will be available in a newspaper. It will be available when you listen to TV program, or if you read a magazine, or whatever you do, you will come across some problem. That problem you will have to develop. And while you to develop that, you need to go deeper and deeper and deeper into that issue. And there will be technology. The technology requirements can be solved in 2 ways. Either you have your own technology providers inside the campus, or you can outsource it. It depends. It depends on the option of time available, the comfort of time. If the time is available on your side, you can have your own self-grown technology, and then you can adopt this content with that. But otherwise, you'll have to go for it. Most companies and now most institutions go for outsourcing. You can also do. Then the delivery channel. We call it as LMS, learner management system. What type of delivery you are going to make? So before we get into the discussion part, we have to ask ourselves these 3 questions. Do I have the upgraded technology necessary for adapted case study models? Do I have the content which is supposed to be digitally developed and compatible with the upgraded technology which I just mentioned? And there has to be a compatibility between the way, because that is why there are different case models available. Depending upon the technology available, the need of the students, you can choose a particular type of technology. To start with, you can go for a simple case study model. Then you can progressively make changes. Then the last one is a channel. What is the channel? How it is going to be delivered to the students? How we are going to showcase these adaptive case studies to the students in a manner which is liked by them, which they find it as useful. So these are the 3 factors affecting adaptive case studies. And when we talk about this case study, as I said earlier, it has certain steps involved. First one is, I tell you, you have to present a problem to the students. I'll also be doing a demo on that. You have to just present a problem, and you have to ask for the opinion of the student. Ask for him to give a solution. Now, based on the very limited information, he will analyze the problem and he will make a decision on that. Then we provide more information. We provide some more information. After learning about those informations, which will be slightly different from what was given there, he will be asked to again go to the same problem. That's called a revisit the problem. Here there will be two decisions we can expect, any one of the two decisions. Either the person retains his first solution, or he changes the solution. He might think that after more information available, his the thought process undergo a change, so he may go for the next one, or he may stick to that. Then in the next level, we give some more information, we put some twist there, and then we see how this boy or girl handles that situation. Now again, after reading everything, again he has to handle a same old problem or a new problem, because each stage the problem will get changed, as you may be knowing. The same problem will not come. Once it appears to be solving, means some other problem will emerge. That is an offshoot of the first problem, and that we will have to be providing. Finally, we have to we will never go and tell him you have reached the best solution or you have reached the right solution. There is no question of right solution in case study. We will say, since you have chosen this answer, these will be the key learnings for you. This is going to be the outcome will be like this. And if he wants, he can again go to the first one and restart everything. That is the advantage. He can learn all the three dimensions of solving a problem, and that facility is available. Now we are here in 4 models right now. Of course, the models are increasing. Then there is also one model called expert talk model, and that is also they are working on this model. Now the first one is we call it as branching scenario model. Here there will be a first scene, main scene, and then there will be branches. Then second one is called interactive magazine model. For everything we'll see examples, videos. In magazine model, it is just like 2 pages. You read one page and then you move to the other one where some other informations are available. Some situations would be presented here. Some video clipping would be available. You just see the video clipping and then you choose one of the answers. Where immediately you would be told whether your answer is right or wrong, and why it is right or why it is wrong. Then we move to the next level. This is how it operates. Then the next one is a story-based model. Everything you are going to present in a form of a story. Then the latest one, which is in a developing stage, is a simulation. The real-life situation is brought in here. Now the first method, as you had seen earlier, is called branching scenario. In branching scenario, what happens is we have first level branch, second level branch, third level. The story will be changing. There will be twists and turns in the story, and based on that, he will come up with the new problems. But I tell you one thing: without fundamentals, if he is not fundamentally strong, without adequate theory knowledge, it will be very difficult to work on that. But they will also try to provide certain necessary theoretical background. But the complete picture will have to be given only by the teacher. The teacher will act as a facilitator. Every time, see, if you take a case study, means the case study will go on for 1 hour or 2 hours. You will also be giving all the necessary theoretical background of the situation. Without it may be human resource management or finance or marketing or system or operations, you will be just giving the background. If it is human resource management, means it could be relating to recruitment related issues, selection issues, or performance appraisal, salary fixation, and then evaluation, separation. It could be relating to, but they should know the theoretical base of that particular topic. And as you can see, the scenario will get changed, and they will come across new and new scenarios. The biggest advantage is it is very interactive. There will be active involvement on the part of the students, but the biggest difficulty is it is quite difficult to develop. But once we become thorough with the topic, it will be very easy to tell. You have to give new situations, and everything will be available. If you go to the internet and if you read a lot, you will know how it can be taken to the next level. Then magazine format, as I said earlier, there will be 2 pages available, and it is a kind of interactive mode. You can go back and then come. That's called move back and forth. You can flip pages to see what is happening, and then you can finally answer the questions. And the next one is when we talk about advantage, it is quite easy to prepare. A very small knot we require to develop it, and it is also very easy to run. But it is not very interactive. You will be just listening to the experience of somebody working in a company. This is what we do. Then story-based. The story-based is very interesting for the students, because it will be as though they are listening to a story, and we will also be seeing how it can be prepared. And the company will take a particular experience and they will develop a story around that experience. Slowly they will introduce characters one after another. Each character will have a background, and these characters will interact with one another, which will lead to the development of a situation. And that situation will present certain challenges to the reader or listener or the one who is working. Then he has to make the decision. Based on his decisions, the characters will change their approach. This is how it is done. It will be very interesting for the students. It is also easy for you to develop it. But one thing is, as I said, for writing any story, we need to put certain twist and turn to sustain the interest of the students. Then this is the last one, and we are working on that. This is a simulation. Simulation means we are bringing the real life into the classrooms. What actually happens in the real life or in a work life, we bring in here, we discuss it, and there is a simulated situation available. Learners will do assignments and they'll be getting feedbacks. You might have heard about just-in-time teaching. You teach for half an hour, immediately there will be a test, and the students will immediately give their feedback on that. And this is what we are going to adapt in a large scale in future. This is very interactive, very engaging, but as I said earlier, this is somewhat difficult to develop because you need a lot of data points. The data need to be there so that you can put a lot of twists and turns. Now, this is the 4 important methods in which case studies can be available. You can't find many information about these type of case studies because now it is with the companies, with the publishing companies and e-learning platform. Just since I work, I'm just sharing it with their permission only. And since I work for them, they have given me that freedom. Now we are going to see how to develop a case actually. That we will be very quickly seeing, and then we will move to the next one. So this is how branching case study is developed. I hope you are able to see that. This is the main scene. You can see 3 columns. One is the voiceover. This is what we are going to write. This is where we will be writing the case study. And then second one is on-screen visual and text, means how it should appear, who should come in the picture, all that information, how the particular person should look, whether he should be happy, sad, angry, depressed. Likewise, we will be just this is for the e-learning company to work on that. They will give information how it something should be something should appear. And then the last one is the development aspect, the media development, the audio and other things will be added here, and they will give a very clear instruction. The first one should be the welcome screen, how it has to appear. All these they will very minutely work. Now you can see the main scene. Let me very briefly say what is this case study is all about it. The company, which is the Exlu company, it goes for a selection of management trainees. And what happens is it chooses one of the management trainees. And this particular gentleman, Vinay, he is a very brilliant student, and he is assigned to R&D department. And he performs extremely well. Impressed by his performance, his R&D manager wants to give him some out-of-turn promotion because of the situation. And that design manager has met with an accident. It's a fatal accident. So what happens is now that position opens up. The design manager position opens up. But the convention of the company, as per the HR policy, management trainee should be first appointed as assistant manager and then promoted as manager in due course of time. All other vacancies should be internally filled up. There is no lateral vacancies available. Lateral is available only at the entry point. So this is the situation. There is a HR manager. And the first one, I said what actually happened in the company. I introduced the characters here. And I also said that this Vinay is the one character who is the management trainee with 8 months of experience. The other character is Ravi Shankar. And the rest is it's there. It is actually the first case study in my book on human resource management, but that is a 1-page case study. Now it runs into 22 pages. So we have to develop on that. There I put everything in within 1 page. Now what I'm doing is I have developed it. I have given new situations, and then I have taken it forward. Now once whatever I said, the manager, the HR head wants to appoint this Vinay as the new design manager. So he has to obviously consult the HR head, Sonali. They have a decision. Now the question is, you come here into the play. The student comes to play. If you are Sonali, what would you recommend to the R&D head? I said 3 situations. One is this Vinay is exceptionally doing. The second one is the policy of the company is to promote the person within the eligible candidates. That is, one of the assistant managers should be promoted as the manager, design manager. Or here I am giving a third dimension. Don't fill up the vacancy for some time, because once you fill up the vacancy, what happens is unless he is moved to another position, that vacancy won't arise again. So Vinay cannot be accommodated. So the third dimension to the problem we are giving, third solution we are giving, that is you create 2 assistant manager positions and make this Vinay as one of the 2 assistant managers. So one will be a experienced assistant manager, another one will be a young assistant manager. Whether the senior assistant manager will agree to that proposal, we don't know. When Vinay is appointed as design manager in out of way promotion, will others accept it? We don't know. If we call for that internal applications, we will be missing on Vinay, who is exceptionally talented. What will be your choice? So you must understand the whole situation. You will have to look at the different directions. I want you to look at the yellow one. We are going to see that in actual presentation. So now what we are doing is we are going to choose Vinay as the design manager. We have decided to go for it, so we are going for yellow. Now the option is branch 1. Now I'll have to go to the next level. This is called, as you can see, the first level branches. In first level branches, I have chosen the first branch. First branch is appointing Vinay as the design manager. So they have decided, Ravi and Sonali decided to appoint him as design manager. Now he has become the design manager. Well and good. So he is very happy. Great. Based on recommendation, he has been promoted. Now what happens is there are problems. So we solved one problem, that is filling the post of the design manager. And now n number of problems arise. All the others, who are the others? The existing assistant managers, they are furious. They feel insulted. Not only the assistant managers, even the peers, those who joined as management trainees, they look at it differently. They see it as a kind of favoritism done for Vinay. Now there is a whole lot of problem. Again, what happens is Now there is a situation. Now there is it appears that the decision is backfiring. Now it appears that the decision is backfiring. We do not know what is going to happen in the future. Now you will have to make a decision. Either remove Vinay as a design manager or continue with Vinay as a design manager. Or the next option we are giving, you go for the somebody, you bring somebody from outside, which your HR policy is presently not allowing. So we are giving a third dimension to the problem. It is an unexpected dimension. Why? We are questioning the whole HR policy. Why that HR policy prevents us from going for laterals? Had it allowed us to go for lateral, this problem would have been solved. Now open the one more thing. But here I am going for the second option. As you may be knowing, in corporate, once they decide, they will, any administrator, once they decide, they will try to stick on with that. Of course, there are three options. It is for the student to choose. Now I'm going for option 2. Now I'll have to go to branch 1.2, where I have to continue with that story. Suppose Vinay is continued as design manager, how the situation will be. And these are other solutions. As you are seeing here, had he chosen some other option, we will be discussing all this, or I will be writing all this. Now I am coming to branch 1.2. This is the second level. Next level we are coming. Here, what happens is, now the problem becomes aggravated. As expected, the problem is getting out of hand, and employees become vociferous with the charges of favoritism, and then work climate gets affected. As you can see, the work climate at Xlook is deteriorating. Again, there is an option available. In such a situation, which of the following option do you agree with the most? The first option we are giving is, leadership is all about making bold and often unpopular decisions. Go ahead, don't change. Face the critical situation, otherwise this will become this will be recurring in nature. Second one, it has started to affect the team spirit and commitment. Somewhere we made the mistake. We have violated our whole HR policies. So go back and set right the options. We are at this level, we are going back on our decision. Whether it is good or not, we don't know. But this is one option we provide to them. Or the third one, you can see, the leadership make a conciliatory gesture. It calls the employees and tell them, a mistake had happened, but this will never occur in the future. They make a promise so that the tempers cool down. This is the third option. This is one option available, and they go ahead. Now you can see that we'll have to go to branch 1.22. That is, we are choosing option 2. Now, once I choose this option, if somebody chooses no, I'll have to be ready with my next level. I'm going to 1.22. If you go to 1.22, I'm coming here. So here, now Ravi and Sonali are discussing the situation, and they finally ask Vinay to step down. So now the situation takes a turn. We are not deciding that. I am not deciding that. The student has chosen it. The learner has chosen this situation, and he decides that we will have to go back on the situation and change everything. Now Vinay is in a very precarious position. He is in a dilemma. Having served as design manager, he is going to step down. Now, what will be his mindset? That is very important. And here there is a rumor that he is likely to leave the organization. Here, whatever decision taken, we have reached this level. And then, as I said earlier, there is no solution. However, please don't expect that everything will end on a positive note. Like in movie, okay, hero will solve everything, and finally then there will be a very smooth end to everything. It's not like that. Now things are getting out of control, in the sense Vinay is likely to leave the organization once he stepped down. Now there is another question. If you read the whole one, you will find out Vinay will have certain options. What he has to do, whether he has to accept it, because management is making a promise to him whether he should accept that promise and continue here, or he leave the organization. Like that, we will have to here. Suppose what is your key learning? We are asking in the whole discussion, and the student says the company once developed the policy should adhere to that, and then you'll have to give a feedback. Yes, it does help to adhere to policies and not change them unless there is a dire need. This is how the whole case study ends. And these are other options, as you can see. I'm just showing it to you. The other options are plenty of other options are there. All these we will be working on that, and we will have a final discussion. So now I am closing this. I'm moving to the next one. We just so now we are going to see this. Just to please tell me once you get. This is LMS, which supports this case study.
Welcome to the case study on internal recruitment and promotions. This case looks to be
audio and video is
good.
Audio is not available.
In next look,
audio and video
the
is
recruitment
good.
policy is quite clear.
Good. Okay.
While entry-level junior managerial positions are filled through like campus interviews, they need to spend 1 year in probation before being eligible for the role of assistant manager. Senior managerial positions are filled through an internal recruitment or promotion system. The head of R&D, Roy Shankar, has a decision to make. His design manager passed away in an accident. There is a management trainee, Vinay, who has been in the system for 8 months.
Roy meets the HR head, Sonali. He recommends that an exception be made, and Vinay be given the role. If you were Sonali, what would you recommend to the R&D?
So now you can see that same options available. As you know that I have chosen the first option, supposing, and I decide to appoint him as design manager because he is very talented. The other one is asking for application. All that I already explained. I'm going for the first option.
Great. Based on your recommendation, Vinay has been promoted as design manager. He is very excited and happy about this out-of-turn promotion. However, he finds that the new role is no cakewalk. He has to learn many new things which are challenging. Sadly, his peers and even mentors are ignoring him and are not as friendly as they used to be. But Vinay is determined to surmount these challenges and remains optimistic. Over a period of 2 months, there is a drastic reduction in the morale of the design team. Team members showed disinclination and the absenteeism rate accelerates. There are strong rumors that one of the experienced assistant managers is actively looking for a new job. Roy meets the HR head, Sonali. He recommends that an exception be made, and Vinay be given the role. If you were Sonali, what would you recommend to the R&D?
So now we are going for the second decision.
So,
that
Vinay continues as design manager despite all the problems. Employees gradually become vociferous with charges of favoritism flying thick and fast. The climate at Xlux is deteriorating. Roy calls for another meeting with Sonali to discuss his concerns. In such a situation, which of the following options do you agree with?
So I'm going for the second option, which I have already said, just to show that.
Roy requests for a meeting with Sonali to discuss the challenges he is facing with his team. They both reflect to understand what they should do to salvage the situation. They decide to ask Vinay to step down as assistant manager. They reassure him that the management will support him in the future and that his work is really appreciated. After the initial shock, Vinay finds it more pragmatic to stay on at Xlux. However, Vinay's peers cheer and humiliate him, making the workplace very toxic. This is inevitable and only time will tell how the situation would. What are your key learnings from the current case?
So this also we have discussed. We have come to the final stage. As I said earlier, I am just choosing here. Anything can be chosen. I am just choosing here, and I am giving this option. So yes, it does help to adhere to policies and not change them unless there is a dire need. This is how it goes on. I have shown you one branch. Similarly, there are second branch available and third branch available. If student wants, he can continue with the next branch to develop the second perspective of the problem. How this can be solved in a different way, what problems he is likely to face when he chooses another path. And similarly, he can also go for middle path. That we call it as middle path or conciliatory method, wherein we have taken a decision, but we decide to adopt a conciliatory gesture. This is how the whole thing goes on. And this will run into several pages. Here, this is actually a delivery mechanism. What we are seeing here in Pearson case study is a delivery mechanism where you will be seeing your performance also. Suppose you are answering this question, and just to say, and just quickly show that here, if you look at it, you can also check your performances. Once you answer this question, this A will capture your answer and will give you the scorings, whether how you have developed your problem solving skill, how you have developed your decision making skills, and how you developed your communication skills. And this will be capturing on that. The speciality of this case study is it is not only the case study, but it is also embedded with the LMS. So it is in a ready to use format. You don't need to bother about how it should be delivered. As I said earlier, there are other methods are also available. I'll be just showing what are the other methods we have available here. You can see here, this is a magazine model. In magazine model, so you can just look at this. Netflix is what I said, a true story. It is a true story. You would have heard about, everybody would have heard about Netflix and how popular this company is. It is actually started as a startup company, but they have adopted an unconventional method, whether it is in human resource management or finance or marketing, everything they have gone for unconventional method. And now it is one of the top 500 Fortune 500 companies, and it makes a lot of profit. What is the reason for its performance? Now they say this company is there and there is a recruitment policies. Who should be selected? Now we are in a recruitment stage. You can say who should be selected. 4 options are available. This, as I said earlier, this is a magazine model, and I am just choosing the first option. So we have to go for the one who has the highest package. Now in between, I am going to give you, before you go ahead with answering the next question, you will just go to the magazine. That is where some informations are presented. So now, as you see, you can go to the next situation. 4 situations are presented here. Now the company is facing a problem. There is a daily conflict, and which is affecting the output also. Now, how will you handle the situation? Fire the employee who is troubling, or put everyone on a cultural training, or conflict or lifeblood of any industry, allow it to go for some more time, or implement strict appraisal. Now, based on what we understand from that video, we will be making a choice. Supposing put everything. So we say that that is not the right answer. Then we go to the next question. This is how it moves on. This model is called a magazine model because it gives you more and more information. As you open any magazine, you will have box items wherein some more informations will be available, and then you can come to the main story. I'll go for the next model. This model is called a story-based model. I'll just show you how this works. It's a kind of a storytelling. You can see how it works.
We are discussing hugely successful
They are
organization
telling us a
of
story.
recent times, Netflix. Netflix, one of the most successful startup who survived the dot-com bubble in late 1990s. Today, Netflix rules the entertainment landscape with 130 million subscribers in nearly 200 countries, a growing slate of award-winning programming, and a market cap of more than $150 billion. This is at par with Disney.
So now I'm just giving, we'll complete in few seconds now.
There are few reasons for this unprecedented growth. Click each item to learn more.
I'm just clicking the founder, Reed Hastings.
Number 1 is founder Reed Hastings and his thought of breaking the rules. He kept his communication direct to consumer. Also, his idea of getting to video streaming business was an industry first idea. The human resource management style of the company remained orthodox. This helped the company to attract and keep great producers to them. Netflix employee likes to take vacation on big chunks of 5 weeks or so. However, the time off in excess of 30 days needs to be approved by an HR officer.
So now here the whole transcript is available. If you want to read the whole transcript, which is available here, anytime this can be referred to. Suppose we will go for this one, and this case study will go on. As you can see, it has 28 pages, and it will be moving. The last one, I think.
To keep the manpower attracted and stay with them, founder designed a concept of freedom and responsibility, thereby developing a culture that balanced a flexible work environment with few constraints and high responsibility.
I just want you to see the next one, and then we will finish it.
Let's deep dive and understand some more facts or other reasons of success. First, go through the case study on Netflix presented on the screen.
So now you can see they are presenting the whole case study here. Now they want us to read the whole case study here and then proceed with the other options. And this will give the holistic view of it. And then every time we will have to respond based on that. We will be learning and then move to the next level.
Let's see the possible reasons. Netflix is a hugely successful organization. Which among the following, according to you, could be the most appropriate reason for its big success? Choose the best option and submit.
So this is how the whole thing will move on. You will just choose a particular answer, and then in the next stage it will be discussed. Again, there will be questions, and this will go on like that. This model, we call it as a storytelling model. So I'm just leaving here. So with this, we are winding up the discussions on adaptive case study models as a tool to develop blended learning. Thank you very much.
Sir, good evening, sir. I have a question. My name is Amla Sen. I'm from Bangalore. Sir, which tool you are using, sir, for teaching account subject?
Excel.
Excel,
I am suggesting that we need to use only Excel for teaching accounts or any other relevant tools for teaching, because once they go for the job, they are supposed to work with the Excel only, Excel or any other equivalent tool.
Sir, this case studies what you have taught us, the 3 models, sir, is it available in online or we can?
No, it will be it will be shortly available. It will be very shortly available. By January, all these will be available.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So it was a wonderful experience for us.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question from you, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So basically, if you see in the today's scenario, because when you talk about the online teaching technology due to this pandemic,
yes,
because see, everywhere the people don't have the complete connectivity of this internet and everything. So you
yes,
see the teaching, online teachings can be affected due to that, because whatever planning we have how to do effective teaching in the classroom, our motive is what, to give maximum productivity to the student. But due to these technical problems, you feel somehow we are unable to give a right kind of you can say
yes, sir. I fully agree with you that online teaching is going to be a problem, and some survey says even as high as 40% of poor students will be left out of the process. But still, the government is making its own effort to overcome this problem. But the suggestion I am giving here is blended learning. In case of blended learning, we involve both face-to-face and digital learning, online learning. But I want you to understand one thing. In this pandemic situation, we have no other option available with us. Face-to-face communication is not possible. So as an adult solution, we will have to go only for online teaching. The other one is, personally speaking, we worked on this online submission of assignments. Initially, students had difficulties in submitting the assignments for their summative exams. But finally, they all fell in line and somehow found the mechanism to submit it. So when it becomes a necessity and the students have to go for it. Now, the conservative estimate says at least for the next 1 year, there will be disturbances in academic activities. So we cannot leave the students like this forever. Naturally, we have to engage them in some way, and we teachers should find a way out to solve these problems. The others, the government, others, the other stakeholders, they look to us to face give solutions. Our primary duty is to provide solutions. Of course, there is no immediate solution available, but some solution we will have to find out, sir.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative and thought-provoking session. We have noted down a couple of questions from our participants, sir.
Yes.
The first question to you, sir, by Mr. Srinivasa. Will the new mode of work style in the higher education during the present pandemic would really do justice to students?
Yeah, I think that it is almost similar to what was asked earlier. And if we don't teach anything, will we do justice to the students? So that is one aspect. The second one is, where there is a will, there is a way. I know I'm talking in a very idealistic manner. Every institution will have to develop their own ingenious way of solving it. If students face problem, if connectivity is a problem, then in every part, in every village or in a particular place, we can get students assemble even while keeping the social distancing and let them learn to that. That is one thing. Then whatever we are teaching today, we get it recorded and send it through mails. That option, let the students learn it in a very leisurely manner. Not necessary that they have to learn it immediately in a live way. We give them a promise to the students that all these materials would be made available to them. If not now, once that connectivity improves, they will learn it. And if we don't do that, we are not doing justice. At least now we are doing justice, except that there is a deficit in justice. As I said earlier, we teachers have to find the way out, and ways are already available. Thank you. But my discussion today is on blended learning. Okay, next one, sir.
So Ms. Amala is requesting you to share your inputs on the new educational policy.
Okay. Oh, okay. And I think that it is out of context at the moment. I'm just reading the new education policy.
Okay,
and I think maybe we will have one more webinar to discuss it in detail.
Okay, sir. The next question by Uma Balraj. Since our government has announced that only SET and NET qualified lecturers only should be employed, why the rate of graduates is below the line enough we have trained?
No, the government has been insisting that, I don't get you. What is that?
So she's asking why the rate of graduates is below the line that we have trained for.
No, so they come from the same society. See, we learn from our seniors, and our juniors learn from us, and they become teachers. So there are two aspects to that. The first one is NET is not a foolproof test for somebody to become a teacher. It just tests the knowledge. But teaching takes more than mere possession of knowledge. There are several aspects involved, and it has to look at analytical aspects and delivery aspects, content development aspects. There are many aspects. We cannot consider this PhD or NET or SET as foolproof. But whatever mode in which you enter into teaching profession, you must never stop learning. I tell you, I repeat, a teacher can never stop learning. Earlier, there was no external pressure on learning. Now there will be an external pressure on learning. Our competitors will ensure that we learn continuously. Just like in corporates, no? In corporate, they go on secure certificates. Suppose somebody is working on security analysis, means they learn a lot and they certify themselves. If you go and see LinkedIn, you will find that. That is essential. Similarly, for teachers, we disseminate knowledge. So it is important that we continuously update our knowledge. We cannot say I am just for 50 years old, 55 years old, or 60 years. No. The learning should never stop in the life of a teacher. So whether you come through NET or SET or PhD or anything, PDF, but learning must be compulsory. Even a bad teacher will become a best teacher in due course of time, provided he never stops learning. Yes, madam.
Yes, the next question, sir, by Mr. Srinivasa Murthy. How could you visualize the future of government universities and private deemed universities?
See, in this Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I wish all of you read that. That is the base for this new education policy. Now we say Kasturi Rangan report and other Kothari Commission report, any other reports we are referring to. But the input has come from the corporate side only. If you read Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Vision 2030, 2013 to 2030, that is the exact report. If you see that, they are making this classification. The classification goes on like this. It is in a pyramid form. The top one is the research university. The middle one is a teaching university, or I would call it as career focused university. And the last one is called the foundation institution or degree granting autonomous colleges. This is how it goes on. I don't know whether I can discuss everything here. The government has plans to privatize the education and internationalize the education. In that sense, the question is whether the government institutions will be able to sustain themselves. If you read the new education policy, they talk about academic autonomy, administrative autonomy, and they do not stop with that. They go ahead and talk about financial autonomy. Financial autonomy means only one thing. So naturally, the government institutions, government-aided institutions will have to develop the ways and means to sustain themselves. You cannot continuously expect assistance. Maybe the government institutions might escape for some time. But eventually, you understand one thing. Right now, what do? We don't go to labor market in our own name. We go in the name of our affiliating university. To say I belong to this university and we do the placements. But in future, there is no such thing as affiliated colleges. All colleges will have to stand on their own leg. When they go to labor market, they have to market only their institution name. They can't hide behind somebody. So given that scenario, even government institutions will have to find ways to improve their placement. If they already care about placements, well and good. Otherwise, they have to care about placements. Out of survey says out of 60 students in class, 40 students go for jobs only. They become job seekers only. And 10% go for startups, and 10 students take up their own father's business. So, and that the last 10, there is a new breed emerging. They not only become job seeker, they also earn on their own. This is a new breed of youngsters we are coming. If government institutions can satisfy the needs, they will have a good future. Otherwise, it will be in trouble.
Excuse me, sir. What actually I thought is that the government do not have the commitment and willpower. Secondly, the policies of the government, like reservations and all, most of the intellectuals are going abroad. They are inventing so many things, and they are pumping the infrastructure or technology on us. We are unable to compete with them, and ultimately this is actually happening. So how the government is going to look at this kind of environment? They should be very, very clear.
Yeah. I fully agree with you. Yeah. There are several responsibilities for the institution. What you are saying is also one of the responsibilities of the government, and I hope that we are not let down on that. The government has the responsibility to ensure social equity also, social justice also. We expect that this aspect would also be taken care of. But one thing I want to tell you very clearly, sir, whether it is a government institution, private institution, or aided institution, if they do not become competitive, if they do not focus on their core competencies, for anybody, it will be difficult. That much you cannot take the privilege that it is because government institution, they need not focus on competency or quality. It cannot be like that. They should also be able to stand on their own legs. That is very important. And obviously, once these government institutions become efficient, effective, and successful, all other aspects which you mentioned will be taken care of. But ultimately, one day it will come to the government institution to survive, so that they continue to deliver social justice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we have one last question for you by Mr. Ganesh.
Yes, ma'am.
How can we make blended learning more effective?
Yeah, see, we already started the process of blended learning out of compulsion. Now the NAAC is insisting in its criterion to teaching, learning, and evaluation that we go for digital teaching. It is asking about our e-resources. So we have already started it. Whether we have properly understood it is the question. Whether this will become operational, whether it is viable or behind us. All those questions are behind us. Now we have gone ahead of those questions. Now the question before is how effectively this blended learning can be adopted. So one of the professors asked me one question. If we go purely for digital learning or online learning, how those who are deprived of connectivity will benefit out of that. But here in blended learning, everything will be possible. Not only that, there will be face-to-face communication. The other aspect is, even if the student misses a class on one day or is not able to cope up with the phase of teaching, anytime he can have the resources, he can take the resources, access it, and learn at his own speed. That is right now possible. So I am telling, it is not a question of making it possible. It is a question of making it more effective, because it is already here and with us, and we are far ahead from that introductory stage.
Thank you, sir, for patiently answering all our questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I sincerely extend my gratitude, firstly to our resource person, Dr. Alexander Durai, for accepting our invitation to be a part of our international webinar. Thank you, sir, for educating and sharing your knowledge with us. Definitely, sir, you have proved your ultimacy through your qualitative talk to us. I thank all the participants for your time and active participation. Have a pleasant evening. I now request Professor Maria Mendes, Department of Commerce, Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous, to formally extend our gratitude to the participants.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you can go.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not happiness that brings us gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us happiness. Gratitude unblocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. Good evening, everyone. I deem it's a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks at this international webinar organized by Department of Commerce, Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous, Bangalore. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making this webinar possible and share with nearly 1,142 participants from 13 countries and 15 states in India. First and foremost, I express our hearty thanks to Dr. Geeta M. Rajaram from Bangalore, Ms. Chris Saviona Jerome from Canada, Dr. Alexander Pravin Durai from Tirchi, resource persons of today's international webinar. We are grateful for the time and efforts you three have taken to share your creative ideas, innovative plans, academic and industry experience towards global approaches to case study in commerce and management. A big thanks to all the speakers for gracing the webinar and sharing with us their intellectual treasure, innovative ideas, findings and opinions with us. Thank you. I would like to express our sincere thanks to the management for all your support and encouragement. Thank you for your wonderful support. Our heartfelt thanks to the COO, Dr. Srinidhi K. Parthasarathy, who always motivates us and guides us to adopt new and innovative ideas. Thank you, sir. The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. We have one such example with us is our beloved principal, Dr. E. Jerome Xavier. I express my gratitude to our principal for his vision and commitment to excellence and its execution. High benchmark you have set for us and have given us a lot of experience, lot of encouragement in every program we undertake. Thank you, sir. You can do what I cannot do. I can do what you cannot do. Together we can do great things. On this point, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all dear participants who are with us from morning, thanking you for your enormous cooperation, involvement in this international webinar. Thank you all, my dear participants. I also wish to express my gratitude to Mr. Chandan, IT Manager of Indian Academy Degree College, for providing effective technical support. We are grateful for your support. Thank you, sir. Events like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel starts rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye for details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated members of Principal's Office who knew their work and supported us for this webinar. Thank you. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to Professor Sushma Shri, the Head Department of Commerce. Ma'am, your thoughtfulness and generosity empower us, encourage us to do our best always. While I still have the opportunity, let me thank you for all you have done for the department and for this international webinar. You are the most supportive HOD. Thank you, ma'am. Behind every successful program lie the manifold attempts of our committed faculty members. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the immense contribution of our dedicated faculty members. Thank you, my dear colleagues. Finally, thank you all for making this webinar huge success. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maria Mendes. We would share the feedback link in the chat box in a while. Kindly